Hello and welcome to episode 8.5 or whatever we're calling it now. Usual script I say usual script, it's the second week we've done 2 episodes, but we have a special guest again this week. I think in the last episode I said they're not quite as attractive as our previous guest, which was Casey Phillips from the Buccaneers reporter there, but we have got a genuine fan of college football to discuss some draft sort of options for our teams and some other things he's going to talk about. We've also got Jamie, the producer, on, and co-host Tom, as per. And I think this episode isn't really going to be Tom, Jamie, or I talking much. We are literally just going to hand over to Mark with all his knowledge and his stats and his figures that he's going to throw at us. And I think the three of us will probably just be sat in awe of your knowledge, Mark, I'll be honest. And we literally will. And I think what we wanted to see first was obviously you're a Raiders fan, and that's how we got to know each other. And how did you get into NFL, and what sort of made you pick the Raiders, or what made
Unfortunately,
you pick them? I feel the pain.
I wasn't a Raiders fan originally. So I grew up I was born in '79, grew up in the '80s, and it was when American football was kind of really taking off in the UK after the Chicago Bears had won, and I remember going to school, and there was a guy called a friend called Lee Taylor. Shout out Lee Taylor. You won't be listening to this. I haven't seen him since I was about 13. But on the off chance that he is, I'm going to say hello to him. So me and my friend Lee used to go to the library, and there used to be an American football annual. It must have been like 1991 or 1990 or something like that. And we used to read it and read all about these players, who were playing in the NFL. Like your Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, all these superstars, and a lot of me early NFL fandom just came from spending some time with me mate and just reading this annual. Took us ages to pick a football team. Took us ages to pick an NFL team. I understand when people are new to the game. It's not like football where you're born somewhere. Like I'm from Newcastle, which is like this really partisan city. And if you come from Newcastle, you're a Newcastle United fan, and that's it, when you're trying to pick a team, from abroad, or who you're not really related to in any way, it can be difficult because you haven't got that natural passion. So you want to put them down the second that something goes bad, and you want to go, I don't want to follow them. I want to follow this team instead. And I've had lots of opportunity to endure and learn what patience and tolerance is being a Raiders fan. So originally, I dotted around teams, I must admit, when I was like 10 or 11. My mates were all Dallas Cowboys or Miami Dolphin fans. My surname's Steele. Made sense for us to be a Steelers fan. So I was a Steelers fan for a little bit. Then I read about Martin Luther King and how Newcastle was twinned with Georgia and how Martin Luther King had come to Newcastle University, and we were the only university to give him a doctorate when he was still alive. So I became an Atlanta Falcons fan. And then by the time I was about 13, 14, I was listening to NWA. I was listening to rap music. And that was my vibe. And there was Raiders merch everywhere. So you could, it become really available to start going into your sport shops and buying a Raiders cap. And the patch looked really cool. And I was 13 and I loved this band. So I ended up becoming a Raiders fan. And it's kind of just stuck. I'm always on Twitter trying to petition the Raiders fans. I don't know if you see, I try to bring them across to being Newcastle United fans because I say, look, we wear black and white.
Yeah, it's black. That's what I thought. Black and white, silver and black.
Yeah,
fine,
yeah, we wear black and white. You wear silver and black. Oakland's got a bridge. Well, it was Oakland. We've got a bridge, the Tyne Bridge. You've got the Black Ball. We've got the Gallagher End. You've run football for years. We've run even less. You know what I mean? But some of them aren't buying it, So that's in a roundabout way of how I end up following the Raiders and being laboured with them.
Yeah, excellent. I quite like that. That you didn't pick one team and stick to them, really. I quite like that. That it took you a while to pick that. We sort of advise people to just pick a team and stick with them, really.
I think it's different the way that we are at the moment, because it's so prime now. Football, it's so big in the UK. It's kind of that thing now. You have to pick a team and stick with it. Back in the 90s, it wasn't that big in the UK. Like I said, it was growing, but not to the standard where it is now, where it's selling out Tottenham and Wembley like that. It's ridiculous.
I was like 11 as well. And, I was supporting Newcastle United. and we were rubbish, and I just wanted to pick a team who won for a change. Like, I just wanted to be a glory seeker and have something to cheer about on a weekend, you know what I mean? But I ended up with the Raiders, and God,
So do you have a college team?
Do I have a college team? Yeah, I have. I like Auburn. Auburn's my college team. Bo Jackson was the big famous player from Auburn. Bo Jackson, Raiders legend, of course. So I've always kind of followed Auburn. I like Cal. I like the California Golden Bears. They've had some really good players come out. Goff and Aaron Rodgers and Marshawn Lynch, Deshaun Jackson came out of there. They were like Oakland region. So it seemed they're kind of like the teams that I keep an eye on. Yeah, they're like the two teams who I follow. It's easier to watch Auburn games, so that's why I've kind of watched Auburn, like primarily supported Auburn, as a college team.
Yeah.
What are you gonna say, Tom?
What got you into the college game?
Obsession, compulsion, having very little life, the need to be able to throw myself into something and just study the living life out of it. Life and wanting to run away from it. I've got like this kind of mind or this kind of personality which just is an all or nothing personality. And I don't drink alcohol, I don't do that kind of stuff. And I suppose the NFL and college football and all that stuff for me is kind of like a glass of wine for me. It's where I go to switch off. It's where I go just to zone out from what's going on. And NFL I loved first, but the more I started watching NFL and the more I started looking at the draft and the scouting combine, the more I wanted to go watch college football, the more I wanted to do this myself and start doing little notebooks full of scripts on players and spreadsheets and mock drafts. And really, for me, it's I don't do it for any kind of recognition. It just keeps us sedated. It just puts us in a nice place. Helps us go to sleep on an evening and really just helps us get from A to B in a pretty good mind space,
Excellent.
Love it.
Yeah, I love that.
Love it.
Yeah. So I think in terms of we're midway through a season, so you have a sort of rough idea of who's going to be getting that number one pick. I think we all know who's going to get that number one pick.
Giants.
I think you've got the City right. But yeah, it's going to be the Jets, and it's pretty obvious who they're going to take, I think. But beyond Trevor Lawrence going to New York, who else do you see going early on, and where do you sort of see certain players? There's a few names that have been talked about, a few other quarterbacks that are up there. I think you've mentioned them in the group chat. But who do you see going where at the moment?
Quarterback's always going to be prioritised. Because, like if when it comes to cap allocation, if you can get a quarterback on a rookie deal, like you've got your biggest cap hit, which for any normal team would be your biggest cap hit, tied up in this rookie deal. We've got a quarterback for cheap. And it allows you to throw darts at other positions and build a good team around a rookie quarterback. So it's a quarterback-driven league. You're not gonna win the Super Bowl, unless you've got a good quarterback. The 49ers found that out last year. The adequate, middle of the road, not the worst quarterback, not the best quarterback, but you ain't going to win the Super Bowl with that. The days of winning the Super Bowl with your Joe Flacco's, and your Trent Dilfers and that,
Eli
it's gone.
Mannings.
Yeah. you need to have that next big thing at quarterback, and I think at least 10 or 12 teams in the NFL are going to be chasing that next big thing at quarterback. So you're going to see quarterbacks probably fill 3 of the first 5 positions. I'm not too sure if the Jets are going to do themselves out of that first pick. I think that the Jags are starting to slide now. I think that Denzel Mims and Perryman, I think the Jets are in danger of winning 1 or 2 games and getting themselves out of that first round pick. And the Jags, or even Carolina, if Teddy Bridgewater's injured, like being bad enough to be able to slip into it. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the number 1 pick, generational quarterback. Plays at a big program, has done it on a big level, has got athleticism, he's got a great arm, he can throw it to all levels of the field, he's intelligent. He's everything you want from a number 1 pick. Beyond him, You've got the kid out of Ohio State, whose name has now escaped us, Justin Fields. Another 5-star prospect who coming into college, was right beside Trevor Lawrence coming into college. A bit more mobile, again, exciting, can throw at all levels, played at the top level. In any normal year, he would be the first round to be taken, first quarterback to be taken. But of course, Trevor Lawrence is in this draft. So number 1 and number 2 were pretty much nailed on. I would remortgage my house. I would sell my trainer collection. I would put my girlfriend on the street to raise more money.
I like how this is recording now, so we're going to re-show this in next year.
And I would put it all on those two being number 1 and 2. The first 2 picks out of the draft. There's a lot of teams who would be able to match up with them. The Jets are obviously, they've got Sam Darnold, who I don't think is a bad quarterback. He's just not as good as these two.
I don't mind Darnold.
I think that somebody like the Steelers, who are really savvy, will snaffle Darnold up and let him sit for a year, and they've got their ready-made replacement for Ben Roethlisberger, and they'll not miss a beat as a result of it. They'll just go from being perennial Super Bowl contenders to being perennial Super Bowl contenders, because that's how good franchises are run. And they'll probably get him for a second-round draft pick and make everybody else look foolish. But yeah, if the Jets are there, they're going to take one of those two. The Jags are going to want one. You know what I mean? The Jags are going to want one of them. Teddy Bridgewater's done enough at Carolina to, not make it too drastic. But if they're there, they're going to take one again. Washington are in definite need of one. I think the Chicago Bears would like to get up there to get one, but I think their defense is probably going to keep them out of the rush. So yeah, there's a few suitors for the obvious 2 candidates. If we want to look beyond that, if you want to look beyond those, who's number 3, who's number 4, who's number 5, and who's number 6. It's a really deep quarterback class this year. So the 6 quarterbacks are within a shot of being first-round draft picks. If you've got Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, you've got the one that I want to talk about, is Mac Jones, who's come out of Alabama. So he's went in Alabama. He's had to replace Tua, who's been a legend, who regarded, because Alabama wasn't known for producing great quarterbacks. They were known as a really good offensive, really good defensive line team, with lots of 5-star athletes everywhere, and they will just run the ball down your throat. You've got McCallum, and you've got all these players who have come out of there, but not really done amazing things in the NFL. But now you've got Tua, who came in and he was at first, big, glory, well-vaunted quarterback who's went into the draft. And I think everybody thought, we'll get Mac Jones in and we'll start going back to what Alabama do. This grounded out, run behind Najee Harris, run teams into the ground, use a big, strong offensive line and dominate time of possession and just bully on defense and just choke the life out of you. Mac Jones has come in and been sensational. Hasn't got the greatest arm, but throws the most pretty deep ball you'll probably see out of all the college quarterbacks this year. Throws at all 3 levels, but it's his deep ball that he throws with such good touch. Like I said, he hasn't got the biggest arm. He hasn't got the best measurements. But you look at him and you think, if he declares this year, how much is he going to upset the pile of what's behind him kind of thing? So I'm really interested in seeing how Mac Jones progresses. Another one who we've talked about before in the past, Trey Lance, is slightly different because for him it's where's his floor? His ceiling is sky high. You look at him, he's built well, he's got a great arm. He can run with the ball. He's fast. He can take. He can. We played one game this year, and I think his touchdown run was being the highlight of Twitter, and everyone was showing it, and everybody bought into it. Plays for North Dakota State. You can only beat what's in front of you. Very low level talent. Only thrown 1 interception in college, and that was this year. And you can't really count that with the whole COVID and one game to impress. His ceiling is so high, like Mahomes, like high. You watch him play, and he plays the game fun, and he can move, and he's mobile, and he'll eat you up with the odds, and he's but he's accurate as well, and he can play under centre, and he can play out a shotgun. And the only thing that there's a gamble, you think, well, God, this guy sounds brilliant. Where's the gamble? And it's that level of experience, and it's that level of competition. I think he, more than anything, needed a full year of college football, just to show that he could repeat it again before going into the NFL. So there's a few guys there who are doing really well. The kid out of Florida wasn't even a starter, like at high school level. He's coming to Florida. Kyle Trask, big guy, got the size, got the stature. His arms improved. I thought he didn't have such a great arm. He's a very prototypical drop back, in the pocket quarterback, but he's big, and they've got him to bully some runs and things like that. And he's kind of, I don't do comparisons this early, but he kind of reminds me of Ben Roethlisberger, like not the most agile runner, but good for eating up a few yards, hard to get down. You'll have to drag him down in the pocket, and he'll be able to make plays off his back foot and stuff. Before the season, if anybody's having like a Joe Burrow like rise, why still not go number one? Because he's, like the quarterback class this year is far deeper. You're talking about a guy who came in at the back end of the year last year and was 3rd or 4th round draft pick. And this year he's played himself. He's played himself into the first round. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes in the first round, in the back end of the first round. And then you've got Zach Wilson of BYU. Who we've talked about. I haven't seen a great deal of him because BYU aren't on BT Sport so much, and I'm at the mercy of BT Sport, and until more tape and film comes out, you can't really always hang your hat on these players. I don't like reading other people's draft reports, although I do. I'd like to make my own eyesight, and what do I see and what do I think. But the kid's good. He loves a bootleg. He's very mobile. He's got guts. He's cut down the mental errors. You can see he's been working really hard. Got a bit of a slingshot action, has a bit of a side action, but in today's NFL, you have to be able to throw from multiple areas anyway. You look at Mahomes and he's slinging it from here, and with Wilson, and even Derek Carr's got this kind of little snap which he's got this year, where you have to be able to change the angle of the trajectory because defensive lines are so vaunted now, So, whereas that would once be a negative, his action isn't over the top. Now I don't think it really makes a difference, but he's a bit spunky. That's the word I would use for him. He's got a bit of attitude. He's a bit spunky and he's a bit brash, but his players backing it up at this moment in time. So in terms of fits, because I feel like I've just been talking about those guys and might have lost the listeners, and sorry if I have. In terms of fits, Mac Jones, Bill, like the Patriots, like Saban and Belichick have got this mutual respect and they share a lot of information about players. I think he would look at somebody like Mac Jones and think, yeah, this is a new direction for us. He's better down the field. He can stretch the play. He's sensible. He's got really good intelligence. He comes from a really good program. He can work our offense quite well. I think that would be a really good fit. I think Jags, Jets, Washington would love to get one of the top two. You know what I mean? But see if Washington in a poor division managed to win a couple of games and they're now picking 7th or 8th. I think Zach Wilson might be a better target for them than someone like Trey Lance. I would love to see Trey Lance in a really good offensive playbook who will make use of him on play action and use him as a threat in the run game and support him with a really good run game. So Kyle Shanahan at the 49ers, I would love that kind of match. I would love to see something like that happen with Trey Lance or the Saints or someone like that, you know what I mean, who will who can get a hold of him, really build an offense around him. I think that Kyle Shanahan would love somebody like Trey Lance. Kyle Trask, if Pittsburgh were to take the quarterback and if they were picking at the back end of the first round, say they do get the Super Bowl or they get the AFC Championship, they could do a lot worse than taking somebody like Kyle Trask and starting to build behind Ben, and having a look at what's behind Ben. You've got teams like the Chicago Bears who are going to be in for a quarterback. There's teams there who else are going to be looking around. But looking at where good fits are, you know, like, and it's hard to match a player up to a team. It's easier to match a player up to the region where you think he's going to go. So someone like Mac, you know, Mac Jones, if he enters the draft, he's going to be in that 10 to 12 region, which falls into where New England are at the minute. You know, someone like Kyle Trask is going to be at the back end of the first round. So you're looking at somebody like Pittsburgh or, you know, like New England, New Orleans, someone like that.
You can say the Bucks then, because everybody else is just calling us New England now anyway. So you might as well. How many times the commentators actually said New England? He did it again the other day. He kept saying New England. Oh, sorry, Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay fake treats, as I'd like to sort of label them. So I mean, yeah, I think Tom touched it there. You've certainly got me listening more to with our last guest, Casey Phillips. I was more staring than listening, to be honest. But with yourself, I'm more listening.
I can take my top off if it helps, Mark.
Well, you know, if we get to 100 subscribers on YouTube, maybe that's an angle we'll go down. But what are you seeing for? I'm going to go selfish here. Sorry, boys. What are you seeing for the Raiders? Where do you think we're going to go as it stands?
You have to look at how we've attacked the draft for ideas over the last 2 years. And I was saying just before we came on here, you know, it's easier to analyse the Raiders because I follow them in such depth, the same as you, Matt. You know, one thing that the Raiders have shown over the last 2 years since the Gruden and Mayock marriage is that if they've got a position of need, they'll throw multiple darts at it. For example, in the first year, we had a clear need at edge. We got Cleve Ferrell at number 4. We came back round and got Max Crosby. This year, wide receiver, we got Ruggs with the first pick, and we came back and got Edwards. And I think when you look at what we've done and where we're allocating our cap, we place clear value in our offensive line because we need to keep Derek Carr clean. When Derek Carr is under pressure, he goes from being a really good quarterback when he's got time to being one of the worst quarterbacks in the league when the pocket's collapsing around him and he has to go off script, although he's got better at it this year. So there's a lot of value in protecting him and keeping him upright to the point where I think we've got the most expensive offensive line in the NFL. We've got 2 bookend positions. One's a rookie contract, Colton Miller, who's having a Pro Bowl-like season and no one's recognising it in the press. The guy's been amazing. We've got Trent Brown on the right-hand side, who's our big-ticket free agent, who we've barely seen. The way his contract is structured, Trent Brown's on about £14 million next year, so we can actually keep him. And it's not, we're paying him no more than an average right tackle, and his upside is so high, you know. So I think Colton Miller's contract's going to be coming up in 2 years. What you don't want is you don't want to have a left tackle on big money and a right tackle on big money. What you want is you want one on a rookie deal, and then you allocate your money to the one who's a veteran. It makes absolute sense to me, too much sense for the Raiders, for us to target a right tackle in the first round of the draft. Then what you do is if you've got Trent Brown, who can play or not play, as it is at the moment, ahead of him on the depth chart, what you would hope to see is Trent Brown starting, Colton Miller on the other side, see a year of Trent Brown, bring your rookie in the second year. You can move on for Trent Brown with no cap hit, give the money you're paying Trent Brown to Colton Miller, and then you've kept your balance of the sheet, you know, of the bank sheet. Knowing the Raiders would probably come back and go for a second one later on because that's what Trent says. I haven't had a great look at deeper offensive line talent. I've had a look at what we've got there, you know, who's available. And we've talked about a few before in the past on our Raiders thread. You know, Sam Cosmi from Texas is going to be an option. He's your finesse kind of player. You know, he's got really good foot usage. He's really athletic. He's a bit more what Colton Miller was coming out. If you want a mauler, someone who's a real powerhouse, gets away with sloppy hands, but is a really good big booty, which is, I guess, what you want. You know, he's got a lot of sand in the bottom of his lower half, you know, to anchor. You know, you've got Alex Leatherwood at Alabama. You've got the kid, Luke Eichenberg, I think it is. I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. Notre Dame. No, he's a good player. They've produced a barrage of good linemen. He's going to be in that mix. You've got a generational left tackle this year in the draft, and Penny Sewell. he's going to, if there's not 3 quarterbacks taken in the first 3 picks, it's going to be 2 quarterbacks and Penei Sewell. You know what I mean? We're already out of the race for Penei Sewell. Somebody's going to land an excellent offensive tackle in him. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit early to marry people up, but I feel that a right tackle or offensive tackle is going to be a position that we're going to target early in the draft. So second round, it's a really deep safety class. I love Paris Ford out of Pitt. Just because his energy and his high motor, he can play both safety positions. He's got interceptions. He's already declared he bailed out on Pitt halfway through the season. I don't blame him. He's going to make a lot of money in the draft.
Yeah,
he might fall the second round because there's such a deep safety class, and I would love to see him paired up with Abram in the backfield. They would vibe. What we're building, that real nasty, smack in the mouth, bully kind of backfield, that young dog-like backfield that was starting, second level that was starting to build on defense. He would fit in really well with what we've got there. Arnett loves to hit you. Mullen, not the best tackler, but he'll get in your face and he'll press you and he'll hurt you. Abram will just lay you out. And then you've got somebody like, Paris Ford, if we were to get someone like him, who's just a missile. He's just another Abram, but slightly better in coverage. I would love to see someone like him fall to us in the second round. So there's a couple which I've got my eye on already for the Raiders.
Good. So I think you touched on, you've done quite a bit on an edge class, and it's something the Giants have been screaming out for year after year, to be fair. And again, this year, I think a lot of the Giants fans are saying, again, we still don't have that elite edge. At the moment, we've got O'Shane Jimenez. I think he was out of Old Dominion 2 years ago. And we've got Lorenzo Carter, who's on the IR, so missing the season. So, again, it's something we need to look at. I think about 3 weeks ago, if you'd asked me, I think we would have probably dipped back in for a left tackle again if we were, if the fans were picking, just because Andrew Thomas was having an absolute stinker, but something seems to have clicked. Don't get me wrong, we've only played Washington and the Eagles, but he seems to be having, his bad traits coached out of him, and I'm quite comfortable if that continues, that we won't need to dip in. We've got him on the left and Matt Peart on the right. So I think we'd probably be in a luxurious position to push for an edge. Whether we'd go so high on that, I don't know. But I'm hoping we're going to be at about 20th in our pick because we're that good.
You might be if you win that division. You could still have a 6-10 record and end up with the 20th pick,
But yeah, I'm interested because they are certainly players I'll be keeping an eye out for, as well as wide receiver, because we are screaming out for another wide receiver. Although Darius Slayton is unbelievable, we do need to pack that out a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a little bit before about what the Giants need to do. And the good news is Gettleman has trends, but his trend is drafting, defensive tackles. And I'm just surprised you don't just line up 4 defensive tackles on the offensive line, to be honest with you. But yeah, edge player, it's not the deepest edge class, Tom. If there was a position that I would say hasn't got that star power this year, it's going to be edge. I mean, it's got very good players.
So Gettleman will definitely go then. That's just absolute sod's law. He'll be in there.
You're going to have really good pros come out, but you haven't got that top tier Bosa or Chase Young or Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
This big edge name who was coming out, and you just haven't got that this year. What you've got is you've got a lot of very good high floor edge players that can do a little bit of everything. The kid who was the most interesting declared dead early, Gregory Rousseau. He was safety, corner, wide receiver, high school, started playing edge late. He had a great year last year at Miami. The kid's 6'5", between 260 and 270 pounds. Athletic, dead raw, was still able to get the quarterback, but he declared for the draft. So he's going. And I think you're looking at him and you're thinking, what can he be? He was getting the quarterback for Miami of very limited pass rushing repertoire. It's just sharp athleticism, speed that was getting there. So I think you know, like a defensive line coach is going to look at him and go, let me get my hands on him. He's going to be a top 10 pick because athleticism is drafted as high as anything in the NFL these days. There's a couple of guys from Penn State, your team, your college team. You know, like obviously you had Utah Gross Matos, who I loved last year, who went to Carolina and has done quite well. So the two lads who have come in and replaced him, Jason Owe is another athletic, you know, long, about 250 pounds, 6'4", 6'5", you know, like edge for Penn State. You know, unless you get the playoffs, Tom, you know, where you're going to be picking. You know, if you don't make the playoffs, you're going to have like a...
Listen, the playoffs, it's a done deal. We're making it. We're already in there. The ticket's sealed after this Eagles win. Trust me.
Well, if you're going to be getting the playoffs and you're going to be picking in those 20s, Jason Owe is a really good shout for you. The kid from Michigan, who I really liked, and is another riser, Kwity Paye, you know, 270 pound grown man strength. You would think he was like a run-stopping edge, but he's not. He's got great burst. He's meant to have one of the freakiest shuttles going, you know, like he's meant to be an athletic freak for 270 pounds, stout, powerful, bull rush you, got bend, his flex, you know, can hit the corner, has got a lot of bend about him, can scream around the edge. His arrow is pointing right up. And if, you know, like at the start of the year, I would have had him in the last, you know, like at the end of the first round. Now he's playing himself into a top 10 kind of pick, like, you know. So there is some good edges there. They just don't have the pedigree of what we've seen in previous years. Wide receiver is a different thing. This, you know, we thought last year's wide receiver class was good. You know, this year's is even better. You know, it's even better. And I think it's testament to the way the college game is, you know, where the line up with multiple, you know, 4 or 5 wide receiver sets that have as many pass catchers and playmakers on the field at once, and it's producing wide receivers at a rapid rate as the college game, like the NFL, becomes more pass orientated, and there's more shotguns, and there's more, you know, like there's just more air raid and stuff like that, like, you know. So the wide receiver, you've got the kid from LSU, Ja'Marr Chase, who declared early, very good player. You know, you've got the 2 lads from Alabama, Devontae Smith, real thin, 165 pounds, dead light. You know, like you get more meat on a party hot dog, but the kid can really play. You know, he's a senior. He's done it for multiple years. He wins at all 3 levels. He's got really good hands. I'm scared for his life in the NFL if someone like John Abrams coming down into the slot to hit him. I think he might just evaporate. But you know, he's such a good player. He runs such good routes. He's got such good hands. If he can, the worst thing is I don't think he's got the frame that can pack on muscle. I look at him, I think he's just a lean kid. But production, athleticism, traits, pedigree, he's going to go first round. Jalen Waddle, his teammate, Waddle. He's a flyer, probably faster than Ruggs last year. Injured, you're not going to see him again in the draft. That kid's going to go first round. Really, it's what you want, wide receiver. You know, it's the NFL's moved. If you want your speedster, there's one there. If you want your possession kind of box you out kind of guy, there's some there. Ja'Marr Chase would definitely fit into that mold. If you want a field stretcher, you know, if you want somebody who can win at all levels, Devonta Smith. You've got Terrence Marshall Jr., who's came in for Ja'Marr Chase at LSU. 6'3", 200 pounds, 5-star athlete, was overshadowed at LSU behind Jefferson and Chase. Chase declaring has allowed him to come out and start playing. Kid's unreal, you know what I mean? He's showing his 5-star pedigree. He's going to be a first-round pick. You know, you've got Rondell Moore from Purdue, who's a yards after catch machine. You know, like he's 5'8", but he's rapid. He's a jitterbug. He's going to get the ball. He's exciting. He can take any touch to the house because he's just so good with the ball in his hands. You know, so yeah, there's a bit of everything in this year's wide receiver class, and I'd probably say it's the most stacked position alongside safety and quarterback this year.
Decent. Decent.
So
we're desperate for one. We are screaming for one.
But what about the Bucks then after we win the Super Bowl?
We've talked about this. It's hard because whenever I'm trying to do picks for other teams, unless I've seen you, I don't know your needs. And I saw you play us, and I looked at you and I thought, Christ, you haven't got any. You know what I mean? But then you went and got beat off the Saints, which kind of tells us that you must have one or two. And I think the easiest thing is to look at where you've got age on your lineup and think, well, that's naturally where you want to go.
Well, that's Brady.
Well, there could. I don't think you're going to be replaced. You're in a win now mode. You know what I mean? I don't think you're going to be looking at quarterback yet. I think you're going to be looking at defensive tackle. Though. Obviously, you've got Sue there at the moment. Mm-hmm. And I think eventually you're going to need to be replacing someone like Sue. So you've got like Jay Tufele at USC. You know, he's shade over 300 pounds, about 6'3" and stout. You know, he's a good. He can play 3 tech or 1 tech. You know, 1 tech shade. He can line up over the nose, over the centre, or he can play between the gap between, you know, the guard and the tackle, and he can rush a pass and get up the field. So you can play a few different schemes. I think he's a really good bet for somebody like you and a name you should get yourselves involved with. Twyman, who's at Pitt, is another defensive tackle. He's breaking Aaron Donald's, Aaron Donald's records at Pitt. He's smaller. He's a 3 tech. He's about 295 pounds. He's another name you could be looking at. Good team stack. Talent on talent. You know, you got Winfield Jr. this year at free safety. Because the safety class is so deep, you might get somebody like Andre Cisco. You know, you might get somebody like Paris Ford, who I was talking about earlier on. You know, if you're going to be in the Super Bowl or if you're going to be in the playoffs, which you are, let's face it. You know what I mean? Those are the kind of names you want to get to know. Those are the kind of names you want to get to know. Mike Evans, what's going to happen with Mike Evans? For whatever reason, he doesn't look as much of a threat this year with Brady as quarterback. Is it because Brady hasn't got the arm to make outside throws regularly? And he tried a few earlier on the year and got picked off for 7? I don't know. But, you know, Mike Evans, although he's getting feet in the paint, which counts, touchdowns, he's not having, outside of that, he's not having a statistically great season. You know, it might be that you think we're in this win now mode. We'll take what we've got for him. We'll take, you know, he's going to fetch a good price. We'll build some draft capital, and we'll look at maybe making 2 picks in the first round instead of 1. You know, sorry about that, because I know you're a Mike Evans fan. But...
Oh, Mike Evans, I think he's, like I said, he's elite quarterback. He's elite wide receiver. He's one of the best in the league, and he's still playing at 50-70% at the moment because of his ankle injury.
Well, that might be one of the reasons why he's not doing so well then, Jamie. You know, it might be that he's not fully fit.
Don't fall for it, Mark. He's been using this since the start of the season.
Yeah, 50, 70%. What I mean. And he's still getting the touchdown.
He's either fit or he's not.
Chris Godwin's got 8 fingers and he's still banging them in. I mean, he's got like 2 fingers like attached together and he's still catching ridiculous balls.
Can it pay them all, though, Jamie? You cannot pay them all. You know, and Godwin's going to be coming up soon, isn't he? You know, so you cannot pay them all, mate. You know, and I think
Brady clearly calls the shots.
Sorry?
Absolutely. Brady clearly calls the shots out there now. Yeah. Otherwise, he wouldn't have got Antonio Brown. And he doesn't, for some reason, he's not connecting with Evans and he's loving Scotty Miller. I think the writing's on the wall there, which would probably be a good move for you, Jamie. I know you love him, but by the sounds of it, from what class is coming up, you might be able to replace him for cheap.
And that's what it is. That's what the draft is. It's about cap management. It's about how, you see, again, to go back to the Raiders, we were talking about it, you know, like just as fans, we all have our favourite players, but it's not the way that the team looks at it. You know, we took Colton Miller above Derwin James. I had a perm the day before we did that. You know, I was like pulling all my hair out because Derwin James was a much better player. But then I thought about it and I thought, you know, one's a left tackle, one's a safety. You know, who gets where if you're getting a left tackle in free agency, you're paying 20 million for one. If you're getting a top tier safety, you're paying like 11 or 12 or something like that, like, you know, for the best safety, you know. And that's the truth of it, is that it makes more sense in the draft to prioritize edge, quarterback, cornerback, wide receiver, offensive tackle. It's a passing game. So it's about throwing the ball, protecting the thrower, catching the ball, stopping the catch, getting to the passer. And that's what it's about, you know what I mean? So your positions like Micah Parsons, who's a linebacker who's unreal at Penn State, who I absolutely love. And for me, is a top 3, top 5 talent. You know what I mean? Like that in that level. Might fall out and might end up going number 9, 10, or 11. And people are sitting there going, wow, he's a slider. And it's not. It's because middle linebackers play about 80% of defensive snaps. And you can go out in free agency and get somebody like Kwiatkowski. Said his name right.
Or Blake Martinez.
Or Blake Martinez. You know what I mean? And, for pennies compared to what you get in other players for. So, unless you're a team like Tampa Bay, who got White, and that defense was amazing even then. You know what I mean? That defense was starting to become good then. He was the final piece what they needed. Unless you're in that position, it makes no sense getting linebackers and things like that early. Name me the last linebacker that was taken in the first round who's made such an impact that they've almost been defensive rookie of the year contenders. Yeah. You talk about Luke Kuechly, and that's because linebackers, they're not on the field that much. The way you play a lot out with nickel, you play a lot out with dime, your linebackers are on the field, even if you're a 3-down linebacker. On the field 75, 80 snaps, you're off. You're not on, you're not a 100 snap player. And 100% snap player. Some positions are undervalued now as a result of it, So the Raiders have been crying out for a linebacker in the draft for years, but we've never prioritized it. And to some extent, I kind of respect them for it, because I'm kind of like, a bit of a defunct position nowadays. You play out a nickel so much, that you're better off taking a third cornerback than you are taking a linebacker sometimes,
The safeties and stuff can play there now as well, can't he? I mean, you look at Jabril Peppers, the guys all over the place, and he'll fill that slot. Yeah.
Deion Buchanan. Right. Deion Buchanan. When the Arizona Cardinals took Deion Buchanan from Washington, he was a safety and a big hitting safety. And Todd Bowles, Jamie's guy there, turned him into a linebacker, and he was this kind of 217, 215 pound middle linebacker. And that's the trend of linebackers now. You can almost argue like Deion Buchanan changed the mold for linebackers in the NFL, especially where you're playing like a 3-4 set, where they've got these 217, 210 fast, bullet-like, safety converted linebackers. Jabril Peppers I think he's such a good player. I really like them coming out. I think he's I think you got, looking back at that OBJ deal, you know what I mean? You got rid of the drama and you got some decent players out there as well,
Yeah, we tried to replace the drama with Golden Tate, but Peppers is coming on under Graham massively. And he was voted team captain this year. Yeah. And Matt, I know Matty, I know you like him, what you've seen of him recently. I slagged him off after the first Eagles game. It was probably the worst game he's had this season. He blew coverage for the Boston Scott touchdown, which ended up, caused losing us a game. But yeah, he's come on leaps and bounds, and hopefully he continues. I like them nasty players, and he makes me sick sometimes with the speed he runs at people and it hits someone on the run, and he's rushing off the edge now, coming from safety, blitzing. Yeah. I absolutely love to see that. So
just safeties are starting to have such a big influence on today's NFL. They're not just this too high, sit back, last line of defense. You see what Adams did at the Jets and what they're trying to get him to do at the Seahawks. They just blitz him. We're doing it with Abram. We needed pass rush. You watch how many times we had send Abram in the backfield now as a result of it. That kid's like a stick of dynamite when he hits you.
He's brilliant. I love him. I absolutely love Abram. I could watch him for days. Yeah. He's fantastic.
Frustrating. He's great to watch, but there's some moments when you're like, oh my God. You know what I mean? He's just, he has this habit of tackling without his arms out. So you'll see him just running and just fling himself, like a torpedo, but he seems to hit people more than often. He's just reckless, but he's brilliantly reckless. The kind of reckless you want to keep,
Yeah. Is there any other sort of names that you've not really touched on that you've got standouts or keep an eye out for?
There's a corner if you were a fan of the NFL in the 90s and the early 2000s, there was a guy who played for the New Orleans Saints called Joe Horn. He was famous for pulling out a mobile phone from his sock once and he got fined for it, to do a touchdown celebration. His son is in this year's draft from South Carolina. J.C. Horn, the cornerback. He had a double interception game just, like a few weeks back against Auburn, against my team. And he's really good. He's long. He's 6'1". He's got 6 passes defensed, 2 interceptions already this year. He's as good, or is playing as good as any cornerback in college football at this moment in time. Got Patrick Surtain. Patrick Surtain II, his dad again was another NFL player who I remember. Makes you feel old, when you were watching them play. Now you're watching their sons play. Alabama, good bloodlines. He's doing well. He's probably corner number 1 for me. Caleb Farley, Virginia Tech, another big, outside corner, declared early. He's a good player. He's got good tape on. Shaun Wade out of Ohio, I was a little bit disappointed with. I was on him last year. I wanted the Raiders to take him if he was going to declare. Played in the slot last year. Really good tackler, really good blitzer. Looked like a really good chess piece corner. I understand he went back to Ohio because he wanted to show he could live on the outside. If you can be an outside corner, you're going to get drafted higher. You're going to make more money. He would have been the first rounder last year. Anyway, as a slot corner, he's that good. He's played outside. He's been burnt a few times. It's been a bit of a up and down season for him at Ohio. I would say he's got all the athletic traits. In athleticism, it's an athlete's game now. People will draft athleticism above production nowadays. He's probably, I was probably down slightly for him, Shaun Wade. I expected a little bit more from him. He's a 5-star recruit and stuff, and he hasn't. He'll win a lot of battles outside, but he's shown a bit of a curve, as he's learning that outside position. So yeah,
it's a tough position to come into as well, isn't it? As a rookie straight into the NFL.
Yeah.
It's a tough position at corner.
You're going to have some teeth and pains with somebody like Shaun Wade if you're going to stick him on the outside. You're going to have some teeth and pains. But then again, you never know, because there's positions which are used in the college game and it doesn't necessarily play at the player's strengths. Like you were talking about Thomas, your guy, and I was talking about just how often tackles will struggle in pass, in pass blocking. And it's because in the NFL, quarterbacks are playing out of underneath the center. They have to drop back. They have to go to first, second, third reads. You're asking people to block them 3 times longer than what they had to in college. Whereas the quarterback was out of shotgun primarily. They would normally have a predetermined read who they were thrown to. Someone like Thomas was just blocking for like 1.5 seconds. Now he's being asked to block for 3-4 seconds as Daniel Jones goes through his really mechanical read of the field. You know what I mean? And yeah, we had it with Colton Miller. Offensive tackle is going to take a time to gel. Unless you're somebody like Penei Sewell, whose generation is just going to probably hit the ground running. Yeah, you're going to have that. You're going to have that from offensive tackles who come into the league. And cornerbacks, in the college game, they play off coverage so much, they play so much zone. The guy who I love, who was at Auburn, who even I didn't see being as good as what he has been, Jamel Dean, for Tampa, for Jamie's team. He was a massive corner, like 220 pounds, looked like a linebacker playing corner for Auburn, and he would get burned. He would get burned continually because he would be giving players a 10-yard cushion. And of course, they would eat that cushion, and he's like this big tank on the outside, and he hasn't got this great hip swivel. In the NFL, the kid's balled out. He's one of the best lockdown corners of the last season and a half. Of last half of last season, he came in, shut down Michael Thomas, shut down Julio Jones. It's locked up some really good, because in the NFL, they've got him playing press. They've got him using his size. They've got him getting in. They've got him getting in wide receivers' faces. They've got him playing in press coverage. He's lost about 20 pounds and come down to about 200 pounds. And so you've got to project a little bit, because the college game doesn't always play at the strengths of the players, as what the NFL does, you know.
Yeah. So you talked about next season. Who's the most impressed you this season from rookie classes? Well, we'll talk about who's your pick for offensive rookie of the year and who's impressed you.
Yeah. Well, I think if you go into offensive rookie of the year, you've got to look at the two quarterbacks on you, and you've got to go, well, both of them are really good. Both of them are good. And I'm a bit gutted because I had Herbert down as a bust. I wasn't very high on him. You know, I really wanted them to feel. If you've got an opinion on someone, the worst thing you want to be is proved wrong. A bit like Tom's now starting to prove us wrong with Blake Martinez. I was like, he was rubbish at Green Bay. What a waste of money. And lo and behold, the frigging guy's only doing well, and I'm having to eat some humble pie every single week. But don't you worry, the second he does something wrong, Tom, I'm going to be on the phone to you straight away. I told you. I was right all along.
To be fair, I've been quiet about him this week because the Eagles schemed well against him. I think he only made 2 tackles. Yeah. But they, you know, and what's it called? Sanders ran all over us, to be fair. I've been a bit quiet about him, but he's allowed one game.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, he's allowed one bad game. I'm thinking there's more in the pipeline, Tom. I'm thinking there's more bad ones in the pipeline. Green Bay fans will probably tell you there's more in the pipeline. but going back to your question, offensive rookie of the year, it's going to be one of the quarterbacks. Apologies. It's really what you want. Do you want, you know, what you want for dessert? A vanilla ice cream guy, which is really dependable, and you're always going to like it. And if you get a really good vanilla ice cream, it's going to make you go, wow, that's nice. Or you're a Black Forest Gatto guy, you know, like where you like all the cherries and all the cream. And sometimes you can have a bad Black Forest Gatto where it's dry and it tastes really rubbish. And that's kind of like, one's trustworthy and is doing the job. The other one's fancy and makes all the throws, but might fall on his arse. The trusty one is Joe Burrow. You know, he's came in. He's got a shell of offensive line. He's got players like Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. He's got a really good receiving core. He's throwing the ball 40 times a game. You know, he's already looking the leader of that team. You know, and he's playing behind a really like a generationally bad offensive line where he's like running for his life every single snap, every single drop back. Or you're talking Justin Herbert. This kid who's came in and is stretching the field. You know, he's throwing downfield. He's got slightly better pass blockers in front of him. He's got Keenan Allen, who's criminally underrated as a wide receiver. You know, he's got Mike Williams, who's a big top 10 draft pick, who's starting to become good with a bit more consistency, who's playing on the other side as a field stretcher. Hunter Henry at tight end. You know, it's a more NFL-looking offense than what Joe Burrow's got playing with at Cincinnati. And the kid's like lighting it up. He's thrown for 300 yards, 4 or 5, but he isn't winning. He's not winning. You know, not that Joe Burrow is either, mind you. Like, you know what I mean? No, but I think them two are your top two. You know, like your top two. Outside of the quarterback position, because I don't always like to. Because it's such a leg up. I think the quarterbacks will win it. Of course, as we found out with Josh Jacobs, I think DeAndre Swift needs to get a little bit of recognition now. I really liked him coming out of Georgia. You know, I don't know why they don't just give him the ball and just stop giving the ball to Peterson and Johnson and just start letting Swift be the bell cow, because he's a good player. He's a really good player. Patricia must be desperate to get the sack, something like that, because they're starting to ride him more and they're starting to play better as a result, starting to get better results. So Swift would be just outside that. I would have Swift above Edwards-Helaire at this moment in time, you know, like for the running back who's going to do best. I think Edwards-Helaire has been largely not that great. You know, like I might be a bit biased, but he hasn't been that mint. You know, they were all going on like a proper wankathon. You know, like he was going to be come in, he was going to break all these records and, you know, like have 1,000 yards receiving and 1,000 yards rushing, and he can't punch on the goal. He can't do a goal line. You know, you know that very first game of the season when they played the Texans, must have given him the ball on first and 1, second and 1, third and 1. Couldn't punch it in. You know, he's good in pass protection, but he's not that great. He's nothing. I would take Swift. You know, like I would take Swift ahead of him. J.K. Dobbins.
Have a massive game this weekend, don't you know?
Yeah. He's going to be huge, guaranteed. Yeah, but yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire might just be my bias against the Chiefs, but just don't get it. I liked him coming out, just don't get all the hype he was getting. You know, he's a top 5 fantasy running back, and but I must have believed the hype because I took him in one draft.
I've always been a fan going into this one. I don't watch a lot of it, but one player I've quite happy he's done well is I've forgot his name now. What's he called? Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
From Vikings.
Yeah. I wasn't on him. I had him as a third round prospect at the start of the draft.
It was first round, like 20, weren't he?
Yeah. So I had him at the start of the draft process, I had him as a third rounder, and I had him behind Michael Pittman Jr. So yeah, and I was like, and by the end of the draft process, I had him going in the back, like, you know, like I had him in that, you know, he was going to go in the first round, but I had him outside the top 32 prospects. I think I had him prospect number 35 to 40, somewhere in that kind of range. And of course, because wide receiver, you know, it's pass it, catch it, stop it, you know, like I was going on before, going to get drafted high. He went to Minnesota. Why the Eagles passed on him, I do not know. But that's just the ineptness of that NFC East sometimes, you know. Got to get a cheap dig in, you know what I mean? But yeah, he's came in and just done amazing and completely, you know, I was big on T. Higgins. I really liked T. Higgins and was on T. Higgins and CD Lamb throughout the whole process. And my friend Andy, he was on Justin Jefferson. And I was like, I don't even have him as a top 5 wide receiver, Andy. And he loved him. He was on him all the way.
Him and Burrow had a great connection in college, though, didn't they?
Yeah. And do you know what was, though? Do you know why I didn't like him, Jamie? Because at college he played slot. At college he played slot predominantly. Didn't line up outside. Most of his work came from the slot position. So you had Jamar Chase who was on the outside, and he'd been playing outside and didn't have the production on the outside. So they had to move him to be a big slot. And I was thinking, well, you know, what you're going to do? You're going to draft a big slot in the top 20 picks. Are you mad? Yeah. You know, he's not an outside guy. He can't play X or anything like that. You know, like you're going to draft this slot receiver in the top 20. Of course, I got it wrong, and he's came in. He's playing outside for and looking fantastic. But at LSU, he struggled outside. That's why I didn't rate him that highly. He didn't do well on the outside. He was winning most of his games from the slot. So that's why I didn't have him that high. Kind of winning more.
Excellent stuff. I think it'd be really interesting to come back at the end of the season when we sort of have more of an idea of who's picking where. See if we can maybe nail down some of your selections and
get a bit of a mock draft.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you do a lot of mock drafts, don't you, Mark? And you document them all as well. So it'll be really good to see.
I like a mock draft. Yeah. I like a mock draft.
I do have one question. Sorry, guys, because this is personal to me because I absolutely love him. But what are your thoughts on Jameis Winston?
Sorry, what was that again?
No, he really did ask you about Jameis Winston.
What's my thoughts on Jameis Winston?
Right, I like college. Yeah.
Kick him out now.
Obviously, what he had at college is pretty much what you've seen in the NFL. He had a really big arm. He came from quite a big program. He had the ability to throw it downfield, but he was thick as mince. And I guess that's what you've seen. I guess that's what you've kind of seen.
Like I said, he won the Heisman Trophy, though, so can't really complain about that.
I mean, so I think that sort of wraps up really, really well. Have we lost Mark there? Has he gone?
I think so, but he ended on a high with Jameis Winston, so I don't mind.
He has gone. Unfortunately, we didn't actually kick. You didn't kick him out.
It right.
When you literally went, get him out, then he froze and went.
Done.
He may have had battery issues or connection, something like that. But unfortunately, I was going to give him a chance to promote his Twitter because he's certainly worth following when it comes to draft time. What I'll do, I'll just get his Twitter up now. I do actually know it, but I'm going to just make sure I get this.
As it's a new episode, whilst he's loading that, we'll plug our own. So follow us on Twitter at Third Short Pod, Instagram Third Short. Third shot.
I mean, this is why I do it, and I'm not very good at it.
Third Short Pod on Instagram and Twitter, and third.
Can we
do Short Podcast on Facebook? Third and Short Podcast on Facebook. Third Short Pod
says he can't seem to get back in. Mark, he just messaged us then.
And yeah, so Third and Short Podcast on Facebook, Third Short Pod Instagram and Twitter, and Third Short Pod on TikTok.
Mark's Twitter is it's at Stick a Pin in It on Twitter. Definitely worth following if you're looking at the draft. He talks a lot about the Raiders, so you'll have to put with that. But certainly when it comes around to draft time, he puts out a lot of mock drafts, not just for the Raiders. He'll go for every team there. He'll go through the first few rounds and stuff like that. So it's worth following. I really enjoyed that. It was a great insight to a whole different ball game's perhaps the wrong phrase, but a whole different world for us in terms of opening our minds to what is out there. College football is still pretty new to me. I know Tom and we watched the final last year, didn't we? With an Armenian kebab, shout out to Armenian.
Yes.
It's still very, very new to me, and I'm all about learning stuff, and I think it's quite clear. You can see Mark's sort of knowledge has come from an obsession watching football and things like that. So I'd love to get anywhere near that sort of level. College football
on the rise in the UK. It's on BT Sports, Sky Sports, so it's getting a lot bigger over here as well.
Absolutely. For anyone who's hard of hearing, what Jamie was just saying there was it's on BT Sports. You might have been quiet there. But I hope you've enjoyed our sort of second week in a row with a special guest, the second week in a row where we're doing this new format. Usual sort of stuff with the Twitter. I know Jamie tried to tell you then, but massively cocked it up. Just get if you're listening, you probably know us personally. So just get at us. You'll have seen us share it on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram and whatnot. Another mention I'm going to say is if you are a friend of one of ours or you know us personally and you're really into NFL and you want to be involved in a WhatsApp group chat, get in touch with us because we will put you in the group chat. It's getting bigger and bigger, and there's more and more characters coming in there. People that are now we have I call it the originals, which were the sort of 5-6 of us who started it a while ago. Us three, Gaz, Josh, he's probably it, I think, for the originals. Yeah. And it's grown and grown and grown. There's people in that group chat now that I would consider an absolute sort of not a founding member, but a solid member. You've got Bones, you've got Phil, even Owen's been there a lot. I know if you're watching one of the late games, Owen's certainly going to be awake for
that. John's a lot involved at the moment, which is great.
So if you're looking to I think Bones came into the group because he doesn't his mates aren't into it, so he needed someone to talk to him. He's one of the most active people in the group, I would say. And he doesn't just come out with "I like red" every now and then. So, but yeah, we've put on our mate JP John. He's come into it. He doesn't know any of us apart from me, and he's certainly slotted in. We've got Marky, you've just been listening to, has come in purely for his knowledge. That was sort of a chat with Thomas. So let's just get him in the group chat because it'll open certainly my eyes and perhaps other people's. But yeah, well, you've enjoyed listening again. It's been another great couple of episodes this week, and all being well, we'll be back next week when the Raiders will beat the Chiefs for the second time this season.